Good morning. This is another series of lectures that will cover the full syllabus of Forensic Investigation Masterclass. Today I am recording Module 1, Part 1, Introduction to Fraud and Corruption. Prevention is better than detection, and investigation, since detection helps less, whereas investigation is very risky and expensive. You will agree with me that um, prevention will save a lot of trouble, a lot of problems. Because if you wait for detection, it means that you have already been attacked. And if you detect, you might detect something that has been going on for many, many, many years, and therefore the amount defrauded might not be recovered, especially if it was spent on expenses that cannot be recovered. Some of the fraudsters are not very clever. What they do defraud, they use on expenses, drinking sprees, buying expensive but indispensable items which are not assets one can recover. And therefore, detection prevention is better. Detection helps very little, whereas investigation is very risky and expensive. It involves a lot of money because investigators do not charge a small amount of money. They charge good money to cover their own risks as investigators because the perpetrators of crime, forensic, uh, are a danger to forensic investigators because they might decide to uh, do the cover up by eliminating the investigators. That is why investigation is risky. The white collar criminals are the smart people when they are perpetrating the crimes, but they are not good when they are being investigated. And if they discover that you are getting them, they might decide to get rid of you to, to discourage the investigation. Definitions of fraud. Fraud is defined as false representation of a matter of fact, whether by words or by conduct, by false or misleading allegations, or by concealment of what have been disclosed. That deceives and is intended to deceive another so that the individual will act upon it to harm or his legal injury. That is the free online dictionary definition. Put simply, fraud is a deliberate act of deception by whatever means aimed at personal gain, material or otherwise, at the expense of the victim. What is detection? Fraud or corruption detection refers to the discovery of the ongoing wrongdoing. To detect also means to uncover or reveal the fraudulent or corruption-laden transactions or dealings. What is strategy? In the context of fraud and or corruption, control, or fighting, strategies and approach deliberately designed to deal with the fraud or the corruption program. Strategy refers to systems or policies and procedures put in place to fight fraud and corruption in an organization. Fraud detection strategies are as many as human ingenuity and creativity can design. In module number one, I will be discussing module number one of the 20 strategies. I will be in this I will be discussing 20 of such strategies in module one. In this module, the 20 strategies I will be discussing in this module are considered basic and very important in dealing with the fraud and corruption cancer in business organizations, but also non-profits organizations and governments. Thinking like a fraudster. Socrates said this: I cannot teach anybody anything, I can only make them think. I have always asked seminar, workshop, and conference participants a very serious question. And how many times do you think? How many times do you think a day? The answers I have been getting are not only many, but also very silly. I have been getting answers like, I think like a million times, I think several thousand times a day, I think endlessly in any one day. The thinking cannot be numbered. I think several times when I am not asleep. I think countlessly. I think as often as I am confronted with a problem. The last point is almost there. As I said from the beginning, I too arrived the participant of the people, the audience I'm putting the question to, that is the question is silly, and I want to trigger them into thinking. Because I've already told them that the question is silly, and I expect an intelligent person to ask me about thinking about what. Because if asking about how many times people think a day is silly, then it means that that question wants some kind of thinking before any response. So, I expect any intelligent person to ask me thinking about what, but they never ask such question, and therefore they give such a questions answers. But the last response, I think as often as I am confronted with a problem, is almost there, because what I always look for is about a creative thinking. Fraudsters do not think carelessly, because the normal thinking goes on continuously as long as a person is alive. And even when you are deeply sleeping, snoring, and dreaming about many, many memories, many things, you are also thinking. So thinking is continuous as long as you are alive, but that is in natural thinking. What I'm looking for when I ask this question is about critical and creative thinking. How does a fraudster think? Fraudsters think several times a day, whereas the average manager or staff of an organization or a movement thinks rarely or none at all. A fraudster thinks of a fraudulent scheme or a strategy when he wakes up in the morning. At midday, he or she thinks of another strategy. At evening, he or she thinks and designs yet another strategy. At around 11 p.m., just before he or she goes to sleep, he or she thinks about another strategy. About around 3, he wakes up and thinks about two strategies and prays for their success. And at the dawn, he or she thinks about the final strategy for the day, just before he wakes up for breakfast. During all this time, the managers and other staff, including the common man, are totally asleep. Can such people match fraudsters or win against them? Never. This is why fraudsters are always ahead. They strike many times before the people who think not wake up to find that it's too late. I have outlined in the slides in this module step by step on how managers and their staff must think every day, every month, and every quarter, and every year on how to deter, prevent, and detect fraud and corruption early. The medics always tell us that prevention is better than cure. I also want to tell the leaders or my listeners that prevention and early detection of fraud is better than investigation, since investigation is risk and too expensive. Sorry. Leaders of organizations must look for proactive systems, policies that will allow for the creativity of staff to grow instead of letting them sleep while the fraudsters are working hard in targeting their organization. Some of the policies or systems proposed in this module will ensure that there are regular meetings of staff to brainstorm over the controls and security systems of their organization. Nature of fraud and corruption. In summary, fraud and corruption are largely clandestine and secret activities. They are clandestine because the fraudsters do not want to be detected. Therefore, they do it secretly. What is more overt is corruption because it involves the giver and the receiver. This can be eyewitnessed, but fraud cannot be because the fraudster is doing it alone, and if there is collusion involved, they guard the activity such that it can go on and on for many years without being detected. This is what complicates the fight against fraud and corruption, and therefore, uh, the those who are to fight corruption must be creative and proactive to be successful. It is fraud and corruption, and like a cancer, and therefore must be managed well, so that the losses accruing from fraud and corruption are kept at negligible levels. It is like the management of cancer, so that the victim lives longer with the cancer without losing his or her life. Strategy number one: what are internal controls? Internal controls are systematic measures such as reviews, checks, and balances, methods, and procedures instituted by an organization to conduct this business in an orderly and efficient manner, safeguard its assets and resources, deter, detect errors, fraud, and theft, ensure accuracy and completeness of its accounting data, produce reliable and timely financial management information, and ensure adherence to its policies and plans. This is from www.businessdictionary.com. Controls serve as the first lines of defense against fraud and corruption, including all types of financial wrongdoing that might be perpetrated in or around the organization. From the foregoing definition, from the definition above, it goes without saying much that internal controls touch on all aspects of an organization. I can therefore rightly say that without effective and proactive internal controls, many things can go wrong in an organization. The whole business will be carried out in a much disorganized manner, and the fraud or corruption will not be missing. I am aware that many organizations have some form of internal controls, but the question is, are they working for the organization, or they are just manual books, sleeping and gathering dust in office cabinets? I am going to explain the type of control procedures, systems that can work for organizations to reduce instances of wrongdoing and thus minimize losses to fraud and corruption. I will be discussing the whole control environment of an organization. Failures in controls that lead to fraud and corruption, lack of weak approvals and authorization policy or procedure, lack of segregation of duties, lack of procedures and controls monitoring, lack of uh, lack of authorization limits, lack of oversight committees, lack of access controls or security systems, blind trust that leads to lack of proactive verification. Research has shown and confirmed that those who perpetrate most frauds in organizations are the most trusted employees. If I am carrying out a fraud risk assessment in an organization, one of the areas I will target is those people who are much trusted by the organization. That is where the risk lies because it happens almost naturally that when you trust someone too much, you do not think about anything wrong about him or her, and therefore no verification. In fact, it goes to the extent of some stupid managers and supervisors asking the trusted person, where do I sign? As opposed to verifying before signing. Where do I sign for you? And then a person signs as if he's asleep because he thinks he trusted the person. And he comes to discover later that he has been signing wrong things. I saw and I saw one who signed 2.5 million worthy of fraud over 3 years and without detection until a data came complaining of mismatch between receipts issued to him and the amounts credited to his account against them. Such careless managers can even sign blank checks without noticing just because they think they trust their staff. Types of internal controls. There are three types of controls I do recognize. One is preventive and deterrent controls. Number two, detective controls. Number three, proactive controls. What are preventive controls? The preventive controls are the normal controls that organizations set in place to, to deter and discourage uh, discourage fraudsters. Preventive controls are also designed to ensure that errors and other and intentional irregularities do not happen in the organization. The errors and other irregularities are related to fraud and corruption and can also cause harm or loss to an organization. What are detective controls? Detective controls are designed to ensure that errors, irregularities, and fraud are not only detected but also detected early enough so as to minimize uh, the losses to harm or damage to the victim organization. They can come in to help when the wrongdoing has already occurred. Deductive controls are more costly than preventive controls since they require more continuous operational expenses. What are proactive controls? Proactive controls here mean or systems or policies that are put in place to proactively look for loopholes and seal them before they are taken advantage of by the wrongdoers. Procedures like proactive fraud audits are controls in themselves since they allow the auditors of the organization to go out into sections, departments, and all branches of an organization not to carry out reactive audit, but to proactively look for weaknesses that may lead to fraud and do recommendations for systems improvement. Fraud risk assessment falls under uh, uh, this type of controls. Strategy number two, the tone at the top. The tone at the top is very important control strategy for the fraud and the corruption in any organization whether it be government, non-profit, or corporates. The tone and at the top is a corrective image that is portrayed by the CEO and the board of directors, senior managers, and even middle level managers. What what culture, the culture they portray, the image and the practice they portray is what the others below them will follow. And therefore the tone at the top sets the sets everything in motion in the organization. If the top is rotten, then you expect that organization to have rotten staff, because a person like CEO serves as a father figure in an organization, and whatever he does is what will be copied by the staff below him. If the top is practicing zero tolerance to fraud and corruption and all other wrongdoing, then the others will follow. And those who will not be able to fit in the system will sign and leave the organization and leave those who can survive within that clean culture, clean environment of full of integrity. Therefore, it goes without much emphasis that a good leader who is of great integrity leads his subjects or staff by good living example, whereas the leader who is of great dishonesty leads by bad living example. It must be noted here that the tone at the top is good and beyond approach, beyond reproach, serves as foundation for good practices in the organization as a whole. It is a foundation for good design and implementation of controls. The reverse is also true, as noted in the foregoing paragraph. The key participants in setting the tone at the top are as follows: the board of directors, number two, the audit committee, number three, the chief executive officer by whatever title, the chief finance officer, the chief compliance officer, the chief internal audit officer, the top management team, the senior management team, the middle management team. To start with, care must be taken in the recruitment of middle to top management team members. The process to be followed to ensure that the good staffs are recruited is detailed in the thorough pre-employment staff screening strategy explained hereafter. Strategy number three: staff training on fraud red flags and the techniques of detection and prevention. I will summarize that staff training is on the red flags or red indicators of fraud is like an eye opener. It's like giving giving the staff, the whole staff of an organization, a second set of eyesight, which can be able to enable the staff to detect the fraud, because you cannot be able to detect something if you don't know it. Let us take, for example, if you have never seen a lion anywhere in a video, anywhere, you have never met a lion, nobody has explained to you how a lion looks like and what kind of destruction can do to kind of harm it can do to a human person. You can meet it and see a very smart animal, and then you go to hug it, and then the next thing that will happen is it will shock you, because it will devour you, especially if it is very hungry. It will devour you. It will thank God for a big meal that has come around to hug it. But if you had known how a lion looks like and what harm it can do to you, then you will see it from afar off and hid yourself. The same happens to fraud. We do not know how fraudsters behave, what they do, uh, what signs they exhibit when they are doing wrong. You cannot be able to detect someone sitting close to you can be defrauding, and you will not be able to notice and report anything. The senior managers, this kind of red indicators of fraud or corruption must be trained for people, including the drivers, messengers, and cleaners. Research has shown that the lower cadre staff like drivers, cleaners, and messengers are the people who get to know that something is wrong in an organization before even the top management, because number one, they are underrated. People think that they are not intelligent and therefore they can do things in their presence without minding much. Number two, they usually interact with each and every person in an organization, and therefore they know each and every person in that organization. Then the managers and the senior directors should be trained on the techniques of detection so that they are able to set up systems to prevent fraud and corruption. Strategy number four, inclusiveness of staff. Staff inclusion is very important because a staff who feels that he belongs to an organization rarely steals. And if notices something wrong, is most likely to report it. Inclusion of staff can be as follows: including staff committees irrespective of their seniority in the organization. There are staff welfare committees and committees that are related to staff welfare. This kind of committees can allow even the messengers to be members and even be the chairpersons of such committees. When you make a messenger or a driver, that lower cadre, to sit in that committee and participate and even become a leader in that committee or a chairperson, that person gets motivated and feels that you value him or her as a person. Some people, or most people in organizations, think that these lower cadre staff are less intelligent. Let me tell you that messengers, some of the messengers, drivers, and cleaners are more intelligent than the successful CEOs you know. The only problem with them is that in their early ages, they did not find the opportunity that the CEOs got. They did not find opportunity to go to good schools. They did not find opportunity to go through school to university so that they acquire skills that are required to grow in management to become CEOs. But they could be more intelligent. So they should not be underrated. And it has been discovered that these are the people who detect the frauds more than any other person in the organization because of the reasons I've already talked about: being underrated and being everywhere, used by everyone in the organization. Commendations: when a person does something good, should be commended, and this makes someone to feel valued. Equal opportunities for all. Let all opportunities for promotion be open to all that are qualified and a suitable experience, and let the best be promoted. And so that the rewards to a section head is taken by the whole team. Inclusiveness in communication. All good news affecting the organization and the staffs must be made available to all. work instructions must be communicated to all staffs concerned. Fairness for all is seen to be fair in all dealings with all staffs. Strategy number 5, going out of the beaten track, carrying out independent verification of assets and liabilities, fearing of losing contracts. What I'm talking here is that when you are an investigator, or investigator, internal investigators or external investigators of an organization must not fear anything, must not fear losing their employment either. They have to report everything and they go out of the known procedure in getting verification, doing verification of assets and liabilities of the organization. Auditors fail to detect fraud and corruption due to following known procedures year in and year out as per the standards of their profession. This is fine, but forensic investigators must change tact all the time and also use creativity. Strategy number 6, employment of fraud detectives, employment of internal organization fraud detectives. What is the work of a detective? A detective is simply defined as an expert that is capable of detecting wrongdoing by gathering information openly or undercover. Investigators who work with law enforcement or privately are referred to as detectives. Detectives are good for uncovering complex fraud and corruption cases that involve high levels of collusion within or without the organization. This is going to be illustrated by the case narration below. The case of the American CFO, Chief Executive Officer. I will now illustrate the above point by a case that happened in the USA that is very typical of cases that happen all over the world. Our names in the case are changed for the purposes of avoiding unnecessary litigation. John was a CFO of a large motor company in the USA. The company business was stocking and distributing motor vehicle parts. The company had a large warehouse where it stored parts with billions of US dollars. The company had award-winning internal controls and systems and had received awards from many professional bodies, including the accountants body, and had the most trusted staff. But one problem kept on nagging: discovery of losses of parts to the tune of millions of dollars during every annual inventory by external auditors. The figure kept increasing every year until the board sacked its CFO, who was considered old and negligent, and employed John. Immediately, John took over he convinced the board to contract consultants to carry out internal controls and security systems review with a view to improve them and seal, sorry, and seal the loopholes that might be there to minimize or eradicate the inventory losses. The report was shocking. The company had one of the best controls and systems. John worked well as a CFO for 1 year, hoping that the host that was taking parts from the warehouse would go away with the former CFO, but lo, the inventory losses increased by a bigger margin than before, and the board was mad with him. They told him to the face that they had given him another 1 year in office, and if nothing would happen to reduce the losses, he could just leave without waiting to be dismissed or his services terminated. After that meeting, John felt very hard and decided to cool himself by taking one or two bottles of beer at a nearby bar at That evening, while he was there sipping and thinking around, someone seated close to him, but on a different level, noticed that he was stressed and decided to help. He rose up and went straight to John's table and asked whether he could join him. John welcomed him. The gentleman remembered having gone to school together with John many years ago when they were young and asked him why he looked familiar. John asked Lily, and then they settled down to old memories and discovered that they had actual schools together. The gentleman, I will call James, went straight to tell John that he could read frustration on his face. John agreed and told him that the board was on his neck. For Roses, he does not understand how they were coming about, and they had given him just a year to discover or terminate his services. After long and detailed explanation from John, James suspected that it was a case of complex collusion. Cases involving complex collusion among staff and also with outsiders are very difficult to control using internal controls and security systems. James told John that he had trained as an investigator and had several years of experience in that field and offered to assist him, but John resisted, saying that the board would not accept and authorize the expenses involved. James told him that the company will pay him and the discovery of after the discovery of the scheme, not before, meaning that no discovery, no payment. This proposal sounded very sensible to John, and they accepted. James told him that he just needed to agree with James to do the job without notifying the board, and the outcome was certain. John agreed to give James the assignment. James explained that the assignment will involve employment of one of his young investigators, well trained to detect such schemes as a clerk or messenger in the warehouse at the expense of James for 3 months. This meant that John to have uh, was to have included in the payroll at the rate that is normal for such positions, and John could uh, be reimbursed that amount every month. The investigator, let us call him Dick, was interviewed among others and was employed. I wanted to believe that you already know how clerks and messengers are treated by other staff when they are new. They started inducting Dick by sending him on official errands mixed with private ones, and he always obliged. As usual, they thought that he knows nothing and they could not even understand their way of communication. It took Dick 1 month to run all of the staff in the warehouse, including the day guards that were at the entrance to the warehouse. The guards were beyond reproach and could not allow anybody to go out of the warehouse irregularly. This made him to consider other places as exits for parts from the warehouse. The warehouse did not have a back door, but ceiling was in place on the roof on top, since the warehouse was on the second floor of the house, and on top of that house was a roof of iron sheets. He said in his heart, Here could be the answer to the mystery. In the second month in the warehouse, he overheard a conversation by the warehouse manager indicating that it was on that day. The message was like quoted by this, but he sensed that the plan to strike was on that Friday at night. He immediately went round the warehouse looking at the ceiling and saw some marks that were not very clear, but indicated that there was some activity through that point, through the ceiling board, uh, though the ceiling board looked intact and undisturbed. Keep in mind that the warehouse was under CCTV 24/7, 24 hours, and 7 days a week. Dick immediately excused himself, went outside the compound, and phoned John. John quickly John quickly alerted the CEO and asked him for security arrangements to lay ambush that night. Fortunately, the police agreed to come full track and hide somewhere near the building together with John and James. It was not until midnight when they struck. They came with a big truck and connected a radar right onto the roof of the building, and then birds were carried out one by one until the truck was half full, and then the police bounced on them. It was discovered that it was collision between outsiders, night guards, and the most trusted warehouse staff, including the manager. It was further discovered that they had designed a way of covering the CCTV cameras to prevent them from relaying images of people in the warehouse during that action. The police commandeered the truck driver to take them to where he was hired to take the part, and that led to the discovery and the recovery of a huge inventory that had been stolen from the company. The CEO revealed the trick to the board, and they were happy and shocked as well, since the staff court were the most trusted ones. This is how detectives can help organizations. The contract of Dick ended with the discovery, so it means that detectives are to be employed by organizations to perform specific assignments and then fold up. To get continuous benefits, the organization may opt to employ one on a full-time basis to work with the security or audit team. Strategy number 7, setting up anti-fraud councils. To assist your managers and staff to creatively think at least once a month or a quarter, you seriously require structured brainstorming sessions in the form of councils and committees. The functions of the anti-fraud or corruption councils or committees are brainstorming on the organization's control and security systems and report weaknesses, sharing fraud and corruption intelligence, informing the department heads about the identified danger signs that require to be monitored closely, advising management on the additional controls or security systems required to seal the identified loopholes. Membership in the councils. The following should be members of these councils: cleaners, messengers, and drivers, junior managers, middle level managers, senior managers, top managers, the directors. I'll put the cleaners and the messengers and the drivers number one deliberately because they are the most people who detect the frauds and the corruption in the organization. They detect corruption more than even the top directors. The frequency of the meetings. IICFP recommends quarterly meetings that lasts the whole of the morning on that day is not considered very busy and hence less interruptions. Alternatively, the meeting should be held out of station for maximum consideration. Setting up anti-fraud units and departments. This is the setting up of um, departments or units in the organization to do continuous monitoring of all activities so that they can be able to detect weaknesses and even detect fraud. This is this is the department that will employ those people who are trained to be internal detectives, certified fraud, certified uh, forensic investigation professionals. They will be able to identify weaknesses early and recommend immediate actions for such weaknesses in good time. If if some people are caught applying to perpetrate the wrongdoing within the company, they can be arrested or be reported in good time. This is the current trend in the corporate fraud governance. Many large organizations, governments, banks, and insurance companies have special units that deal with not only detection but also prevention and internal investigations. This is the end of today's lecture. I've covered from strategy number 1 to strategy number 8. This a discussion on these 20 strategies and fraud and corruption strategies serves as a firm foundation of all detective or corporate investigators, certified fraud, certified forensic investigation professionals, foundation in the fight against fraud and corruption. The strategies already discussed, if implemented as a combination, will go in a wrong way of safeguarding the organization against fraud and corruption. The coming session, the coming lecture that will touch on strategy number 9 to strategy number 12. We'll discuss more strategies that can be used singly or in a combination to for the fight against fraud and corruption. Thank you very much. This is a series of lectures that are going to continue, and they are going to cover the forensic investigation masterclass course content in full and systematically, so that those who are doing the forensic investigation masterclass will not have to go elsewhere. They will need just to review, replay the lectures and take the tests that are posted here on YouTube to qualify for the forensic investigation masterclass participation certificate within 3 months. We have done this, arranging for these lectures to enable the students of the master class and even those who have enrolled for professional courses not to take it too long to complete their courses, but to complete the master class within 3 months and the professional courses within 6 months. Thank you very much and bye bye.